Hey everyone, Chris here, providing a wonderful voiceover to give you an update on the first couple of days for the journey west. So, as I go through this, you get to enjoy my descent down the mountain from Sunfish Pond County Park in Bradford County, Pennsylvania, with some wonderful views and me playing with the camera. So enjoy that while I explain to you my ride up here and my second day. So I didn't get on the road until about 11 in the morning on Tuesday the 8th. That's a day later than I had intended to, but it gave me the chance to get Betsy inspected and to go through and triple check how I was loading everything out. So on the 8th I woke up, I loaded up the duffel bag, saddlebags, and I took a ride to make sure that Betsy was pretty well balanced. So she was, I was confident, and so I finished loading everything else up. Once I said goodbye to Ma and Liberty, we took off and we went to 476. Initially, the plan was to take 100 and go 100 way up north, but I was getting such a late start that I just decided, fine, we'll go 476. So I took 476, kissed the northwest side of Philadelphia, and hopped onto 76. And then from there, I think it was 276. Whatever the case, it took me to some pretty wonderful places. 422 was on there, and for a while it was just straight roads until I got off of those straight roads and onto winding mountain roads, and my goodness, how wonderful that was. Somewhere on the day, I got on the best road I have ever ridden to date, and there's not a lot of great roads back in Delco for riding. You got to go far and away, but not up here, not up in the mountains. But I went on the best road I'd ever ridden. It was such a dream to ride. Let's see here. How did I describe it? Boom. Wonderful scenery. Forests of pine and spruce, marshy fields full of boulder patches, interspersed with clear brooks and broken by granite ridges. All of it framing a snake of a road that wound its way in eyeshot of a cascading creek that got more beautiful the higher I climbed. And the opposite side of the mountain was much the same. Absolutely gorgeous. Wonderful weather, sun was out, and I was just on these long, sweeping, wonderful roads. And it was great. But the further I got, the more little towns I passed through, the faster the speed limit got. It went from 45 miles an hour to 55 miles an hour on winding little back roads, which got to be a little unnerving. But such a wonderful, wonderful ride for a while. And then I had to get onto another highway, but a state highway. And that led to the worst road I had ever been on to date. Because the instant I hopped onto this road, there was a massive bump, and the top of my load shifted. Didn't help at all that there was a local who followed me onto this little tiny road that was still 55, even though there were no street markings, no guardrails, no nothing. But yeah, so in one day I rode the most amazing road I've ever been on, and the worst road I've ever been on to date. But my day didn't really get better, I guess you could say. I mean, I was just still overjoyed about how amazing that one road was, but it started to rain. And it started out as a drizzle, and I had stopped. And this shows how unprepared I was to be a vlogger. But I had stopped to pull out some of my camera gear and mount it on the bike, and while I was doing that, it started to drizzle. So I was like, alright, drizzle's not too bad. I was on a lovely little road right next to the Susquehanna that was dancing with a pair of train tracks. And what I mean by that is the tracks and the river were making the same moves at the same time. But I loaded up, I got the camera back on the bike, I loaded everything back up, secured everything down, turned the camera on, and battery was dead. And I had already packed everything back up, so I wasn't able to get to the other batteries, which was a shame. Because after following this little winding road through a small town, I came upon a bridge over the Susquehanna, and the view was spectacular. Absolutely beautiful. And then it was back to really fast, winding 55 mile an hour highway roads with locals just looking at me like, what's this guy doing here? And me just going, don't run me off the road. And a little bit more rain. So, pulled off for a little bit, let those people get past me, checked the camera had juice, turned the camera on, got back on the road. Didn't realize until 2 days later that the footage I got for the ride then, which I'll get into, was only facing backwards. So, real shame. Because the ride only got more ridiculous. It really started to rain. But the rain had been going on for so long that it washed the oil out of the roadway, so I just continued riding. So I rode through the rain over Ricketts Glen State Park. I hate Ricketts Glen now because for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I was going over one mountain after another in torrential rain with locals speeding on my butt, and very few places to pull off, but thankfully there was a lot of passing zones up in the mountains, so they passed me when they could. And my ride was that for quite a while. Rain, winding, fast, traffic clogged behind me, mountain roads. I mean, at one point, after I'd gotten down over that set of mountains and was going through another valley, I had to pull off to the side because I looked at my rear views and my mirrors, and I saw that there were a good bit of people lined up behind me. And when I say a good bit, I mean like 3. That's a good bit to me. So I found a spot and I pulled off to the side, and it was still torrential downpour. And I'm watching these people pass, and in the middle of a pack of 4 cars, here was this poor guy on a sport bike. T-shirt, shorts, like gym shorts, sneakers, full face helmet, thank goodness. But yeah, he definitely was not having a good time because he was in the torrential downpour as well, less protected than I was in that traffic, but he seemed like he was trying to get around it because when I saw him in that pack of cars, he was riding the center line. If you don't know this, you don't ride on the paint when it's raining. He was, and I was very concerned and alarmed, but I got back on my way. Climbed over one more mountain, and then decided I needed to stop to get some supplies for when I got to camp. It must have been a blessing, because when I was in the Dollar General, which there are a ton of up here, it poured harder than it had all day. Harder than it had all day. And I was inside for it. Betsy wasn't. But after that, I stopped at a local diner in that little town, which was about a half hour from my ultimate destination. Got something warm to eat and fresh coffee, which was a blessing. It reinvigorated me. And then got back on the road to Sunfish Pond. Now, it was raining pretty hard by the time I got back, or by the time I got to the mountain. And I was pretty worn out. I was determined to just get where I was going and call it a day. And I climbed this mountain in the rain. Now, if you've been watching the video, you'll notice that most of the mountain road is just gravel. I climbed it in a torrential downpour with a bike that was carrying the weight of 2 people, because my gear weighs about as much as another person. We made it up, no problem. No problem whatsoever. We met with the man who runs the camp, Larry, and his wife, and they were angels. Those 2 are amazing people because they set me up under a pavilion for the first night. And my first night at Sunfish was spent under a roof in a tent with all my gear laid out to dry, because I found out real quick that just because it says, hey, it's waterproof, doesn't mean it is. Didn't mean it is at all. Which is why on my second day, I made a run to Walmart, which is what this video, the descent video, was recorded from. My run to Wawa up in Sawyer, Pennsylvania, which is right on the New York border. So I took the opportunity to cheat and crossed the New York border to get a cup of coffee at this wonderful little coffee shop so I could notch my Zippo. But day 2 was a wonderful ride that wiped away the terrible one from the day before. And then back to camp to do what I need to do to get ready for the next day, which thankfully I did. I got ready for the next day because I got caught in the rain again. Day 3 on the road involved rain. It seems like every time I go to move west, it's raining. But day 3 I have video of, and I've got to edit that, so we'll talk about day 3 at another time. But for right now, the journey west is going, and it's going pretty well. I mean, I have not once said, hey, this was a terrible idea, because it's not. But this is Camo